Joining me now in the studio is former Douglas County Sheriff and Senator from Alexandria, Bill Ingebrigtsen. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
In reference to your request to the Department of Justice for a practice or pattern investigation into the Minneapolis Police Department, are you at all concerned about the perception that this simply kicks the can down the road?
No, actually not. It's a unbiased outside agency that's going to come in and investigate the potential of problems in a law enforcement community. I think somebody, it's always been a rule of thumb, at least when I was an administrator over law enforcement, if there was a problem with one of my officers or a problem with one of my actions, we would have somebody else come in and investigate. The further away, the better. And in this case, being with such global results or terrible things that went on, we think that the Department of Justice is exactly the one that should investigate this.
Now, according to Senator Newman, it could take up to a year, and there are inflamed passions right now.
Well, certainly.
So there will be some delay. There are people who want action now. What do you say to those people?
Well, I'm not sure what action that they're going to get now without this, quite frankly. I think this action, should the Department of Justice decide to do it, we'll find out within a week's time. The investigation will ensue. They know what's going on. They watch this. They follow this. But I'm not sure that putting the folks in charge of looking into the investigation, as the governor has done, is really going to move any faster. In fact, they're really too close to the case. Seriously, they really are. And there again, that's why you go outside.
Following the death of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014, Minneapolis adopted the police reforms based on President Obama's Task Force for 21st Century Policing. Following the death of George Floyd, it would appear that those reforms were insufficient. Is there a need right now for further police reform, even before waiting for any further investigation?
Well, and that's what an investigation is all about. If you're going to look at the incident that happened the other night, one would sit back and say, if everybody in that department is acting that way, or approaching the public with that same kind of an attitude, absolutely you would want to dive into that. I think we just do it anyhow. I think we still go ahead and do that. But that you can't lump everybody in on one person's actions. As a matter of fact, we already know that there's something in place to deal with that, and he's sitting in jail right now. He broke the law, or alleged to have broken the law. Very clearly, everybody has an opinion on that. But we got to be really careful that we don't do a knee-jerk reaction to this. But yes, move very quickly is important.
You made the point that police reforms aren't simply for Minneapolis, but for all 3,500 peace officers working around the state. But does this mean that what's good for Minneapolis may not be good for the rest of the state, or is it just important to find that balance between all law enforcement practices working equally well, no matter where you are?
I think it's an equal balance. You work wherever you are. The laws in Minnesota pertain to this are enforced the same in Kittson County, Roseau County, as well as in Fillmore County, as well as in Minneapolis. The only difference would be is you have local city ordinances that might add on to the top of state statutes. But state statutes have had a lot of discussion over the years through the committee that I sit on, the Judiciary Committee, and those take time. They take an awful lot of time. And to just, in general, just go ahead and do that because our emotions are getting the best of us, that's not a good practice, and that's going to affect all of law enforcement in the state. And that's why I'm spearheading this, because I do care about the rest of the officers.
One issue that's yet unresolved in negotiations between the House and the Senate for some police reforms deals with warrior-style training. To that end, the Minneapolis Police Department did ban those kinds of trainings, but then the police union offered them for free, according to an article in the Star Tribune. So does that send a mixed message to officers, like, who do I follow, my police department or my police union?
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like the title of that. If I was the chief or the sheriff, I would say you better change your product here, at least the name of it, because it's not going to come here. Now, if it were self-defense, you may see the same tactics used in this particular thing. I think it's just a catchy phrase, but it's not one that I would want the public to know that my officers were being trained by. It's simply not a good idea. The perception is bad.
The finger pointing now is reaching a national audience. Minneapolis Police Chief Arredondo was on 60 Minutes a few days ago, and just this morning, Bob Kroll, the president of the police union, was on CBS this morning. They both are, taking sides, but in your view, does the framework of the police union itself need some reform?
That's something that we'll find out. I think there is. I think this particular investigation should show that officers that are reprimanded are being treated differently than the norm. If that's found to be true, then the city council, along with the mayor, should take action. What exactly legal recourse that is, I don't know. I know in Minnesota it's illegal for police officers to strike, which I think is a good thing. However, then they have to have binding arbitration, or at least that's where it's led to. That's where the unions have brought it. That you throw everything at the arbitrator, and the arbitrator makes that decision. Because it's so important, their job is so crucial that they stay on duty for public safety reasons.
You made the point during Senate debate that while there may be some bad apples among peace officers, the majority are not seeking to harm innocent people. So we're back to the balance question. Balance in allowing officers the tools that they need in training and use of force to ensure their own safety, but preventing unwarranted use of force, which is what we're really talking about, the unwarranted use of force. How do we prevent that?
Well, you do what you can do best, and that's to use the best armament you have, and that's your mouth. This is not a me against you type of situation. You're out there to protect the public, and you have to deal with whatever situation you have. And a real rule of thumb has always been, and I think the majority of the law enforcement feel this way, that you should be treating that person you're dealing with like it's your grandma, or like it's your friend, or it's like the way you would want to be treated. If you do that on a consistent basis, folks are going to know that, and it's going to be a much less adversarial issue. And that's good for both. There's a lot of officers that go home at night that been in physical scuffles that some of them actually get disabled from that. They don't want that. They don't go on duty to see how many people we can beat up or how many we can shoot. That's just not part of, especially in the Midwest. I'm not saying it's done anywhere else, but the Midwest has always been known for their honesty, hardworking, and that reflects onto law enforcement as well, and it should.
So what do you ultimately hope to see happen?
Well, I'd like to see them take a look at this, and if there are some inconsistencies in the Minneapolis Police Department, do what it takes to correct that. But again, don't include everybody on that. If it's what it seems to be the big headline is the racism going on, then deal with that. Then we should deal with that, absolutely. But I think if you look at the numbers, you're going to find out that high crime areas are in different communities throughout the city, and that's where we expect our law enforcement to go, is into the high crime areas. And if that's an issue in that part of the community, that community should step up and try and change that. It's a little too late when an officer has to be called. So we've got a lot of work to do in Minneapolis, and I feel bad for Minneapolis. I feel for their safety. I feel for the people that come into the city, that they should be protected.
Senator Bill Ingebrigtsen, I want to thank you.
As always, nice to see you.